Picture a really specific, high-stakes scenario. We've got this massive Hong Kong Airlines jet, and it is just battling intense, gusty crosswinds on its final approach to Hong Kong International. I mean, the plane is getting buffeted from side to side, the runway is right there, dead ahead, but the alignment, it's just slightly off. You can literally feel the tension in the cabin. Well, what happens next is actually going to serve as our core metaphor today. In this explainer, we're diving into how a highly technical aviation maneuver translates directly into some profound biblical wisdom for navigating our own turbulent seasons in life.
So, is a rejected plan a failure? I want you to stop and reflect on your own life for a second. Think about those unexpected, massive pivots you've had to make. Maybe it was a career path that suddenly just fizzled out, a relationship that hit severe turbulence, or even a major life goal you had to completely abandon at the very last second, right? Our immediate gut reaction is to label these moments as catastrophic failures. We assume, man, if I had to abort the plan, I really messed up. But what if we totally flip that assumption today? What if pulling up and away from what you thought was your destination is actually the most successful move you could possibly make?
In the aviation world, they have something called a go-around. It's a standard safety procedure. A pilot executes this when those crosswinds are just too high or when they realize their alignment with the runway isn't perfectly right. Now think about how this completely reframes a rejected landing. A go-around isn't a crash, and it's definitely not an admission of defeat. It's actually this highly trained, deliberate, and active pursuit of a safer, better path. The pilot recognizes that forcing the issue under the current conditions is just plain dangerous, so they consciously choose safety over stubbornness.
Let's look at the three really distinct kinetic steps involved in this maneuver. Number one, the pilot has to aggressively add power to the engines. This isn't just drifting away passively. It requires a massive surge of thrust. Number two, they pull back on the yoke to climb. They are literally fighting against gravity to gain altitude and get away from the danger below. And number three, they circle back to try again. It's an incredibly dynamic, active process. You don't just float away, you power out of a bad situation to set up a better one.
Which brings us to lesson 1, submission over ego.
Notice the stark contrast we've got between these two mindsets. First, there's human instinct. Our ego is screaming at us to just force the landing, right? We've put so much time, effort, and identity into a specific approach that we try to jam a square peg into a round hole, completely ignoring the turbulent conditions. But then, contrast that with divine reality. Now, this requires immense humility. It means looking at the situation, honestly admitting the approach simply isn't working, and recognizing that forcing it is only going to end in disaster. It's the conscious choice to submit to reality rather than bowing to our own ego. You know, pilots are rigorously trained to remember that a go-around is always an option. No matter how close they are to the tarmac, they can always pull up. We absolutely need to remember that in our own lives too.
And this connects perfectly to a foundational piece of biblical wisdom. Proverbs 16:9 tells us, "The heart of man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps." We make our plans, we plot out our perfect flight path, but sometimes we just have to swallow our pride, hit the throttle, and let God reestablish our steps when the crosswinds of life blow our plans completely off course.
Let's move on to lesson 2, trusting divine timing.
We all do this. We desperately want to force a landing in our careers, in our personal relationships, or maybe with a huge financial decision, even when it is blatantly obvious that the conditions are totally wrong. We rush the arrival because, let's face it, we're impatient. But the whole concept of the go-around teaches us that God's timing operates on a completely different level. His timing is focused on waiting for the right conditions, the safe, perfectly aligned conditions, rather than just blindly checking a box on our own personal schedule.
Isaiah 55:8 reminds us, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways." When you're forced to execute a go-around in life, it is so incredibly easy to view that delay as a harsh punishment. Why is this happening to me, right? But these delays are actually divine interventions. They're protecting us from a rough landing. Because His ways are higher than ours, a closed door or an aborted plan is often just God orchestrating a much safer, vastly superior timeline that we simply can't see from our current altitude.
And that leads into lesson 3, the strength to rise.
It takes sheer grit and resilience to pull out of a nosedive and start over. But an aborted plan isn't the end. It really is an opportunity to wait for a better opening. When life forces a go-around, you can't just throw your hands up and quit. Think back to those physical steps of the aviation maneuver we talked about. You have to immediately apply power. You have to climb back up into the sky. It takes a tremendous amount of spiritual and emotional energy to bounce back when things don't align. It's an active choice to wait in that holding pattern, keeping your engines running, fully prepared for the exact moment the clouds part and the right opportunity finally presents itself.
Now, if you're wondering where on earth that immense energy comes from when you're feeling utterly depleted by a failed plan, Isaiah 40:31 contains a really powerful promise. It says that those who wait on the Lord will mount up with wings like eagles. Waiting on the Lord during a go-around isn't some passive, defeated posture. Not at all. It is a period of active trust that literally grants us the supernatural strength to rise again, to soar above all that turbulence, and to properly prepare for the right approach.
Finally, let's talk about your smooth arrival.
If you are currently in a gusty season, maybe the crosswinds of your career, your health, or your family life are blowing fiercely and things just aren't lining up, listen to me. Do not fear adding power. Do not be afraid to pull up and circle back with complete confidence. A rejected landing today is not your ruin. In fact, it's very often God's exact method of ensuring a smooth, safe, and beautiful arrival tomorrow. It's simply the necessary preparation for the destination you were truly meant for all along.
So, here's my question for you. Are you ready to add power and circle back? The very next time you find your carefully laid plans violently shaken, I really challenge you to silence your ego, trust the timing of the one who sees the entire map, and find your strength in the waiting. Embrace the profound wisdom of the divine go-around and just watch how it transforms a moment of apparent failure into your greatest, most successful pivot yet.